All right, everybody. This session is on scaling a business with Jorge Abreu. Jorge is the CEO of Elevate Commercial Investment Group and J&T Construction. J&T Construction focuses on helping multifamily investors with their due diligence and full renovations. He is based out of Dallas, Texas, and currently owns properties in Texas, Oklahoma, and South Dakota, but open to other areas as well. His strong points are locating deals, due diligence, executing CapEx, new development, and raising equity. Jorge, go ahead and take it away, my man.
Thank you for that intro. Can you see my screen okay?
We can see it, yep.
All right, just want to make sure.
No problem.
All right, so I'm going to go over a topic that I have not presented on before. Not sure how long the slides are going to take, so I may be going through it fairly quickly. I will give you a chance to get a copy of the slides. I tried to pack a lot of information in here. I'm going to be talking about scaling a business. So in the last 16 years or so, I've started and scaled several different businesses. I started with My Fast Home Buyers, which was a single family investment company. We did a ton of wholesaling and fix and flips. We were at the high point, maybe doing 50 plus fix and flips a year, and then 100 plus wholesale deals. That kind of I started transitioning into smaller multifamily and also some new construction projects until I finally decided to go all in on large multifamily properties. And I started Elevate Commercial Investment Group. We're now at a little bit over 3,000 units, 275 million assets under management. And that's within about 4 years. And then started J&T Construction while I was doing the single family to scale the single family. And then that also grew and scaled on its own as well. So, we leveraged it for my companies and also did third party construction work for other investors. Been able to grow that company to where this year we're easily going to be doing close to 40 million in sales. And then I've also got J&T Capital Group, where I do my new development projects. And then this year started some e-com businesses as well. And going to be kicking off a software company before the end of this year. So I've got some experience on starting companies and being able to scale them. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. So what are we going to cover? We're going to slightly go over, well, kind of already did myself, but I'll go into a little more detail on what my companies do as well. Then I'm going to jump straight into scaling a business. And I'm going to start with you. What type of person does it take to scale a business? And then I'm going to talk about whether you want to scale a business or not. And then the answer is yes. We're going to go into scaling strategies, and so how to actually scale a business. And then if we have time, I've got some bonus slides in there, and I'll end it with some resources and tools that you can use. So as far as myself, I kind of mentioned some of this already. My why is right there, my family. Everything I do is for them. And just working on growing the multifamily portfolio right now, as well as the construction company and the other companies I mentioned. Elevate, that is where I acquire B and C class multifamily assets, and then we come in, execute on the business plan, and raise the value of the properties and give our investors some great returns. And then there's J&T, which is the construction arm, which I mentioned. and we're pretty much a general contractor that can handle anything, large renovations to new construction as well. These are some quick examples of some of the properties we've turned around, some before and afters. I personally love looking at before and afters. So, we've created a pretty good system and been able to scale, covering properties throughout Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, a couple in South Dakota, going to be getting some in Florida here soon, most likely. And then these are some of the clients that we've serviced, some of the properties that we've also purchased on the J&T side and also on the Elevate side. All right, so what kind of person does it take to, one, start a business, and then two, decide to scale that business? I think it's two different individuals. Somebody that wants to start their own business usually has, if not all of these characteristics, some of them. I think some of the ones that you must have, you must be able to stay motivated. There's usually lots of ups and downs when you're starting a business, and you need to know why you're doing it. And you need to constantly keep that in front of you and remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. And then you've got to have discipline. If you don't have discipline in starting a business, you're most likely going to fail. Same with patience, which I've learned throughout the years that it seems like people are losing their patience more and more. They want that instant gratification. Building a business isn't one day to the next. It's just not the way it happens. So yeah, you've got to be patient, and you've got to stay focused. I think focus is one of the most important ones. It is going to be very difficult to start and scale a business if you're trying to do 30 other things. And I know that sounds weird coming from me after I just told you I've had all these different businesses, but I started with one, and I conquered it, and I scaled it, and then I grew from there. If you don't have that one, then it's going to be difficult to try to grow several at the same time. Then you've got to be willing to sacrifice, or be willing to make some sacrifices. I talked about instant gratification. So, unfortunately, a lot of the things that give you instant gratification are the things that you've got to sacrifice. Sitting down and watching TV for 2 hours feels great. I mean, it's one of I love watching movies, so it's difficult for me to not stop and look. I'm not saying be a robot. Obviously you've got to enjoy life and whatnot, but you've got to control how much time you spend doing those things. You've got to be efficient with your time. We all have the same amount of time. It's what we do with it. So, speaking of which, so who you spend your time with, I think it's very important as well. And you've got to be willing to sacrifice some of the individuals that may be in your life that just have a negative mindset. It's not going to help you grow your business. And then I mentioned the other items already. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on having the right mindset, because I think it's very important to have the right mindset if you're going to scale a business. So, I call it the inner battle. I think you need to be able to win that battle first. So, you constantly need to be aware that throughout the day you're making decisions, whether you realize it or not. Some of those decisions have become habits, and you don't even realize it. So the first thing is you got to become aware. You got to become aware that you don't have to do those things. You can change your habits. You can change the things that you tell yourself. So we're constantly telling ourselves things, and a lot of the times it's negative things. It's I can't do that. There's no way I can do that. I can't be that successful. Um, I can't own a jet. I can't do this. So you need to be able to change that. You need to be aware that you're saying those things to yourself. And you do that by having the proper mindset and checking yourself constantly throughout the day. And whenever you catch yourself in the wrong mindset and heading down a negative path, you've got to know where to go. I start thinking about my why and why I'm doing this, and that, yes, I can do it. Whenever I tell myself can't, if I ever say can't, and this is coming from Tony Robbins, but that tells me that I need to do it. Whatever it is, whatever I said I can't do that, instantly I tell myself, okay, I guess I need to do it. And then good mindset, take the time. Yeah, so same things I just said. Make sure you reset your mindset, even throughout the day. So this is coming straight from Tony Robbins. I think he's one of the best at self-development and just making sure you're focused and you're in the right mindset. So one is make a decision, right? A lot of people say, because they want to make the right decisions, okay, yeah, so they keep telling themselves, oh, I want to make, it's not the right time, or I want to make the right decision, and they don't end up making any decision. Well, in a sense, that was their decision. Their decision was to not take action and not do anything. So number one, make a decision. I talked about talking to yourself, or your self-talk. So make sure you're telling yourself the right things. And that just goes by being aware, writing down what those right things are, and just, like I said before, whenever you're going down the wrong path, make sure you reset yourself. He talks about changing your story. So, if you continue to tell yourself, there's no way I can be that successful, there's no way I can raise that much money, there's no way I can own that many units, you need to change that story, because you continue to tell yourself that, you're right, that's what's going to happen. So you need to replace those things with, I am going to be successful, or I am successful. And then your energy will focus and flow towards that direction. Set your body to succeed. So be healthy. We all know what we need to do. We all know the wrong things to eat. We all know that if we exercise, that's better for our bodies. And that also reflects on our business. And on top of that, the main reason I take care of myself is all the hard work I'm doing, and I'm doing it for my family. At the end, if I'm not healthy, how am I supposed to enjoy it with them? Talks about using pleasure over pain. So, real simple on that is, like I said before, if I see myself going down this negative path, I remind myself of, okay, if I don't get this right, if I don't put myself in the right mindset and do whatever it is I'm trying to do right now, then I am not doing what I set out to do. My why is my family, and to provide for them as much as I possibly can and give them the best life possible. If I'm going down that wrong path, I'm not doing that for them. So that's kind of what gets me back in play. So you got to find what those are, and just use that when needed. Education, study. There was when I started building my first business, in the beginning, I did a lot of education, and I knew everything there was about real estate investing in single family and market. And then I got so busy in the day to day and growing the business um, that I stopped doing those things. And that was years where I kind of just, and I woke up one day and it just light bulb went off. And I went right back to reading books every day and getting educated. And it really helped. Meditate, that's one that I'll be 100% honest with you guys. I have not been able to conquer that one. I know I need to, and I just got to make it a priority. I can't say I don't have the time. I just got to make it a priority. Connect with other humans. I mean, that's huge. You've got to build relationships. Us as humans need that, and then when it comes to business, it's extremely important of who your network is and who your relationships are. Change your focus. I think I've talked about that quite a bit within some of these, but just make sure you're focusing on the right things on a daily basis. And I've got more content that I'll go into detail on that. And then don't forget to be grateful and appreciate what you have. Um, and that just also helps keep everything balanced. So I think it starts with how you start each day, right? I'm a huge believer of the Miracle Morning. If you haven't read the book or listened to the book, highly suggest it. I don't follow it to a T, but for the most part, I do. Um, I wake up around 5 a.m. I make sure I get hydrated. I make sure I go and I work out first thing, get my body moving, get in the right energy flowing, and then I start going over my goals for that day, and I make sure that I know what I'm going to be focused on. My main focuses for each day, and then throughout the day, and also ending the day right, I think is also important, right? Making the most out of each single day. Um, so to do that, you've got to. I talked about the habits, so you've got to be aware of these daily habits, um, and essentially your habits and decisions in the big picture is what's going to make you successful or not, or make you reach your goals or not. It's all those little decisions that are going to lead up to whether you're going to succeed or not. So be aware you can replace those bad habits. If you pinpoint the triggers, you can then replace those with good habits. So at the end of the slides, I've got book recommendations. There's some great books about this stuff. Also suggest you read that. So focus, decide what you want to conquer and stay focused. So I constantly I have boards in my home office. I've got boards in my office. They've always got my main goals that I'm trying to accomplish during each quarter. I make sure that the things I'm working on a daily basis are all getting me closer to those goals. And I try to, biggest thing here is not allowing others to dictate your day and what you accomplish in that day. So a lot of us have started to just work off of emails, right? And we're checking things off the list. We feel real busy. We feel like we're accomplishing things. But if a lot of those things are just other people's goals or tasks, and you're not staying focused on what yours is, then it's going to be very hard to accomplish your goals, especially in certain amount of time. So, make sure you block out time to work on those important items. I'm not saying ignore everybody's emails, but come up with a system that keeps you on track. Decision making. So talked about this a little bit, but you've got to be able to make a decision. You can't just get stuck over analyze things. At some point, there's got to be certain criteria that you've set, and if things meet that criteria, you've got to move forward. You got to pull that trigger. Try not to. I had an issue with this early on, which I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I had to learn that not everything was going to be perfect. I needed to get enough of it done and move on, or whether I was delegating it to somebody and they weren't going to do it, as good as I thought it should be done, that I had to live with some of those things. Quickly make a decision. Yeah, I kind of talked about that already. Make an educated one, but you got to make one. And then you're gonna make some wrong decisions. It's gonna happen. I've made several throughout the years, but I've learned from every single one. Now, if you make the wrong decision, the same decision twice, that to me is where you're hurting yourself. You've got to be able to learn from that wrong decision and then move on. And then end your day right. So, towards the end of the day, we're usually drained. Energy levels are low, and we just got to make sure that we take the time to. Me personally, I constantly have my tasks and my goals and everything running through my head. So one thing is I like to make sure that I've got everything lined up for the next day and take it all out of here so that I can then rest for the next day. Journaling is a good way of doing that. Just setting your goals for the next day. So make sure you do that. Then I'm gonna try to speed this up even a little bit more because I see I'm almost coming up on 30 minutes and I've got a ton more slides in here. So this is quick. This slide here is more of looking at yourself and making sure what you want to do is scale a business. So, maybe you want to be a business owner, but you only want that business to be as big as you personally can manage and handle, and you need to have your hand in every pot. And you just can't imagine delegating some of the stuff to others. Then scaling a business is not for you, because there's no way you can scale a company without bringing in strategic partners or employees that you then have to trust with some of these things. One individual can only do so much. So I ask you to do that first. Make sure this is right for you. And if the answer is yes, you want to scale a business, then one of the first things is coming up with the vision and the core values of that business, and where you see that business being in 5-10 years. And I know you've heard that before, but really do it. It's very important. I've learned throughout the years, core values is very, very important, and I think underestimated. When you start adding team members to your company, and even the business that you, the systems and procedures that you put in place, and just the way you do business, is gotta fall with those core values. And when you hire someone, you've got to make sure that they fit those core values. I'll give you a quick example. If you're interviewing someone for a sales position, and you can tell right off the bat that they are great at sales, their numbers say they're great at sales, but they're just a horrible person, and they don't meet your core values, it's not worth it. Trust me. In the long run, it's not worth it. Will they bring you money into the company? Yes, but that's going to spread. throughout the company, and it's just not going to be worth it. Trust me on that one. And then your vision, how do you create a vision? Make sure that you pinpoint who your client is. How do you bring value to that individual or company, whatever your client is? And then how is your company different from everybody else that's trying to bring that same value to them? And once you got that, then what do you do from there? You're going to set those goals that you need to accomplish. So let's say 5 years. That's usually the easiest one to start with. If you want your company to be here in 5 years, okay, then what do you need to accomplish to get there? And then you break that down all the way down to quarterly goals that you need to meet so that you can hit those goals, those larger, bigger goals. And then you've got to make sure you can track those. Start thinking about what team members you're going to need. So you may not need them all at once, but 5 years from now, if your assets under management are hitting the billion mark and you're deciding to bring in property management and all these other things, what does that look like? And who are the strategic partners or employees or investors, vendors, everybody that you're going to need to get there, and make sure you know what that looks like. And then you start, as you grow, you start adding those team members. And I say, try to stick to organic growth versus paid growth. And that's mainly in this industry, in real estate investing. There are a startup, a tech startup is going to have to go with paid growth for the most part. You're going to have to bring in a lot of employees, and you're going to have to build this thing while you're not making any money, any profits. But on the real estate side, you can grow it organically. So you can start making those profits, and you can start growing the company until you hit these bottlenecks, and then you start filling those spots. And that's what I call organic growth. And to me, that's the best way to do it. All right, so now I'm going to get into the scaling part. 1 second. Okay. So you need to focus on what you want to be and commit to grow, right? So at this point, you've decided where your business is going to be and what you need to do to get it there. So you need to have at the same time, you need to create some realistic targets. When I was talking about those goals, and I just mentioned 1 billion in assets under management, and you're currently at 1 million, don't set the goal that you're going to hit that in 1 year. So you want to have some realistic, but aggressive. The Grant Cardone says 10x. I'm saying maybe don't overdo it, but definitely don't keep it low, just so you can hit your goals. And then you start to build a concrete action plan of how you're going to get there. I talked about your team. You're going to need, and I mentioned here an A team. So as I started building some of the companies, I learned early on that if you don't bring the A team in and you bring in the bench, it's not worth it. It's worth paying or doing what you need to do to bring in that A team member versus the bench player. Now you can develop some bench players and you can make them into a team, but don't expect them to right off the bat deliver like somebody that has the experience or has the characteristics it takes to do whatever it is you're trying to fill. Build collaboration. So talked about networking, start thinking of who you can build some type of partnerships with. Take care of your service providers and your vendors. They are very, very critical in growth. Yes, you're paying them to do their service, but it's not about just paying them. It's give you an example. You get thrown into a deal, and this is one of my examples. You get thrown into a deal that's already started, and it started going south, and they came to me to help them close on the deal and become a partner. And the existing attorney on it has no idea what he's doing, and he's not helping the cause, and there's a short time fuse to get the deal done. I reach out to my attorney, which I've got a great relationship with, and explain to him the situation, and his entire team rushes to it, and we get that deal closed right away. If I didn't have that relationship, that attorney's going to tell me, you know what, I can't do it. I've got my standard takes 14 days for this, that. There's no way I can do it. But since I had that relationship, they bent their standard operating procedures, which I'm going to talk about here shortly, and helped. So same with contractors, same with any vendor, property manager. Just because you pay them doesn't mean that you're going to be getting the best service. You've got to find ways to add value to them as well and build that relationship. And then to me, this one is probably the most important. It is the one that I think a lot of companies fail at, and the main reason they are not able to scale, which is creating your processes and your procedures, and creating that foundation to where you can easily plug somebody in and they know exactly what they need to do. You're delivering same quality service throughout because you have that standard operating procedure, and this goes back to my best example here is McDonald's. McDonald's is one of the ones that's started this from the beginning, and they would deliver the same, I don't even know what they call their burgers. I don't do fast food, but whatever, quarter pounder, the same quarter pounder in no matter what city, what state. And it's because they followed a very strict standard operating procedure for every little aspect in their business. So you have to find a way of not at the same time, right? It's this struggle where I'm not asking you to overanalyze everything and spend the first year of starting your business just writing out a standard operating procedure for everything. What I'm telling you is, before you get too big and before you start adding all these team members, start doing this. And there's ways to do it where it doesn't take too much of your time. So whenever you're doing something in your business or somebody else is doing something in your business that you do not have a standard operating procedure for, if it's being done on the computer, you screen record it. If it's something that can't be done on the computer, you record it. Just record it with a cell phone, whatever. And then you take that and you send it to a VA or an admin or somebody, and you have them create it off of that recording, and keep the recording for training. I mean, that's great as well. And that's the easiest way to do it. It's tedious. It's still difficult because you have to slow down, I think is the most difficult thing. And it's hard to slow down sometimes when you're building a company. But to me, it's the only way to do it. The only way to be able to truly scale. And then you've got to identify some unique selling propositions that you can offer your clients. And that, there's a lot of different. So I'll give you an example there. I came into the space with a lot of construction background and with a construction company. And right off the bat, I noticed that in multifamily syndications and investing, that a lot of the operators didn't have that experience. And, they're raising all this equity and putting $1 million, $5 million towards this large CapEx project when they're purchasing these properties. And them and nobody in their team has experience in handling something that large. There is a lot of money that can be saved, a lot of time that can be saved having that experience. So that's where I saw my unique selling proposition was I have the construction experience. My team is going to be able to um, complete the CapEx project and implement the business plan a lot faster than others will be able to. We're going to be able to do it cheaper, more efficient. Um, and I ran with it, and it worked because what I had pinpointed in the beginning was accurate, and people found value in that experience and being able to do what I was offering. So find what that is and really own it. And it could be several, doesn't just have to be one, but run with it, and that will definitely help you to scale. So articulate that competitive strength. So kind of like what I was just saying, find what your strengths are, and then being able to relay that message is very important as well. And then bulletproof your market message. So back to knowing your client, knowing your market, knowing what you offer. I'm going to try to go through this one quickly. I want to leave some time for questions. So this is really just about knowing, pinpointing who your clients are, and then how you're going to relay your message to them, and then what is going to be your best return on investment. And that's going to take tracking and testing. But I'll give you a quick example here. So, Facebook is great for free organic growth. So on your regular Facebook profile, you can grow your friends up to 5,000. You can search however you want to find those, and you can add them all to your Facebook. And overall, Facebook doesn't control too much of who sees your content and who doesn't. I mean, they do by far. If you've got 5,000 Facebook friends, not all 5,000 are going to see what you post, but they don't control it nearly as much as they do a business page. So know that your return on investment there is pretty high, because all it's really costing is your time or whoever's time is posting on there. But you get capped at 5,000, right? So then you look at Instagram. So Instagram has no cap, but it's also very difficult to grow organically there. Somebody has got to want to follow you. You can't just search for people and I mean, you could search for people and message them, but there's just pros and cons, right? And you just got to outweigh where you're going to put your most time and resources towards, and what makes sense. And then, so automate, I think, is super important as you try to scale. I try to automate everything I possibly can. Obviously, there's some things that, especially in this business, that are difficult to automate, but I have found you can automate it to a certain point, right? And then for the most part, at some point, you've got to step in and give it that personal touch. But there's a lot you can do in the background to automate. You got to find what those are. You got to cut the fat. So I had to do that with my construction company several years back. We had grown quite a bit, and our overhead was getting a little out of control. There was we were overstaffed. And I had to sit back and kind of cut the fat on our team, and then also cut the fat on some of the things we were doing, right? Some of the reasons we were overstaffed is because some of the tasks that I thought were important and had to get done, and I had to cut some of that out as well. So keep that in mind as you begin to grow, and that's why I talk about organic growth and pinpointing those bottlenecks. It's one of the things I did not do when I started the construction company, but I've now learned to do that. Talk about the bottlenecks again. You know, that should determine your next hire, and then that'll keep you growing organically. Outsourcing the non-essential, kind of talked about that already. I'm a huge believer in VAs. I've had great success with them. Now, you need to make sure that you train them appropriately, right? Don't expect them to just step right in and do what you need. You've got to be able to take the time to train them and give them the tools they need to be successful. But once you do, I've found it works out great. Once you get everything going, you know, make sure you test out your marketing and your brand. And that one thing you can do is you can work your marketing awesome, and you start getting all these leads, and then you don't know how to handle them. So that's a huge waste. So make sure that you've tested it and you've thought it through all the way to that lead becoming a client, and how that happens every step of the way, you know, what the funnel looks like. I'm not going to go into much detail there. Once you start growing the company, I talk a little bit here about spending and making sure you're spending money in the right places, and you don't just start, you know, you get this massive office space, but yet you're only a team of 3, or just make sure you tie an ROI to anything that you're spending, and that it makes sense. Like I mentioned early on, you know, you got to be ready, able to delegate and trust that delegation, that it's going to get done, and trust that individual. How you do that is you've got to trust that you've trained them well, or whoever has trained them well, and that you've laid out that SOP and your criteria, and that you've hired the right person, right? That you have the right person in the right seat. I'm not sure if I went through that yet, but that's huge. A lot of the times you can have the right person and you can have them in the wrong position, and you don't understand why they're not being successful. And if you just step back and you analyze it better, and you speak to them and you communicate with them, you can notice that they're in the wrong position. I've done that several times, and once I've made that shift, put them where they should be or where they could excel, it's night and day. Same thing. I've also pinpointed some that were the wrong person, which I talked about earlier a little bit. They were possibly in the right seat, but they were the wrong person. To me, those you just need to get rid of. And then KPIs. I'm a huge believer in KPIs and being able to track your goals down to a weekly basis if possible. You know, all the assets that we manage, we've got our certain KPIs that we're looking for on a weekly basis in our weekly reports, constantly drilling our on-site team, making sure that we're hitting those goals. Quick example I had was, you want to raise 100 million this year. That's your goal. You need to break that down. So what does your average investor invest, which you should be easily able to see that. You know, if you use a investor portal, like we use Syndication Pro, which I'm a strong believer of using some type of portal, That tells me right away what my average, right on the dashboard, it tells me what my average investor invests. Let's say it's 100,000. That means you then take that 100,000 and how many investors are you going to need? It's going to be 1,000 investors that year to invest. Then it goes all the way to, well, what does it take to get one investor? So if it takes this many calls to get one investor, then you need to make however many calls. If it takes one call to make one investor, which would be amazing, and obviously not true, but you would need to make 1,000 calls, and then you distribute that throughout the year, and you track it, and you hit your goals. Sounds pretty straightforward, but it's difficult when you're in the grind to stay disciplined and just make sure you're tracking it and making adjustments as needed. And you can do that the same with every aspect of your business. So I used acquisitions, asset management, much more. These were bonus slides, and I'm coming down to just about 12 minutes left. I think I'm going to skip these business slides. Like I said, if you email me, where's my email? Well, before I get there, so here's a list of recommended books for business and personal development. A lot of the stuff I talked about in here, I learned from these books. Traction was a huge one. And that goes over just having an operating system for your company, whether it's EOS, which is what Traction talks about, or the Great Game of Business that has another good operating business tool in there. Same with Profit First. Mike actually has another book called Clockwork. I like that one a lot too. I read that one recently, and I liked it. It's great stuff in there. And then personal development stuff. If you go to this website, so my website's elevatecig.com. Got a ton of resources there. If you go to /books, I have a list of maybe 50 or 60 books that I recommend. I've also got a page on the site under resources that has some of the softwares that I use to automate a lot of the things I do in my businesses. So you can also check that out. And then if you email me, so Jorge or George, I go by pretty much both, but it's spelled Jorge. So JORGE at elevatecig.com. Shoot me a quick email. I'll send you over the slides. Usually I set up a landing page, but didn't have a chance this time. So just shoot me over an email. You've got all my contact information here. And then I have to, if you've got any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And I guess I should have been looking at that because as of right now, I don't have any. So if nobody has any questions, I could go back. Hold on. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me make sure. So there was one question in here before we even started, which is, how do we scale our syndication business if we are still learning how to underwrite? So that's a great question. So if you're still learning to underwrite, I take it, you're just starting. You don't have any properties, and you're definitely in the early stages. So what I would say is, everything I just went over, keep in mind that, well, one, start with the vision, right? So where do you want to take this to? Where do you see your company? I'll give you mine as an example. So, when I thought of my vision, I thought of, I want to have 10,000 plus doors under management as soon as possible. I want to grow it to no end in sight, 50,000 doors, and just continue from there. I want to leave a legacy behind. I want to leave a massive, massive company to my children and hopefully their children. And so I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew then I took that vision and I said, okay, what is it going to take me to get there? I knew there's no way I'm going to do that by myself. You know, I'm going to have to build a team, and you know what that team looked like. So I wrote down, you know, I'm going to need somebody to specifically work on acquisitions, and this is early stages because obviously to get to the growth I'm talking about, we're talking about a team just working on acquisitions. But to start, you know, somebody solely working on acquisitions, somebody solely working on raising funds, somebody working on investor relations and making sure we're communicating with our investors, an asset management team, making sure that we're uh, delivering on our promises and that we're executing our business plan, and so forth, right? So I broke that out. And then you're talking about still learning how to underwrite. So I definitely got the education. So it sounds like right now you need to get maybe possibly a little more education, or more practice. You know, before I know I underwrote more than 100 deals before I landed my first. And some of that 100 was more just practice than anything. So know your real estate investing or whatever it is you're doing, know the ins and outs. Now you can always, as you grow, you can always add team members. That ideally what you want to do is add team members that are better at each aspect of the company than you are, right? So, you know, if I'm going to hire an underwriter, I want to hire an underwriter that can underwrite better than I can, and whatnot. So I think it's more of just laying that foundation. I'm not even sure if you start really building your systems and procedures, because it sounds like at this point you're not even sure what those are. But keep in mind, once you do get educated, once you do start landing deals, once you do start growing the company, then start laying out your criteria, your procedures, etc. I hope that answered that question. I do not see any other questions in here. So either I did a good job or nobody was paying attention. One of the two. I've got 5 minutes left. I could go over some of those slides that I skipped over. So let me see if I can do this quickly. Share screen. Hey, Chris.
Hey, man. Hey, yeah.
Got
So I was just listening in on the last little section there. So I think we didn't have any questions on that. So I don't want to force you to have to go back and cover any material
Okay.
that you didn't hit during the discussion. So I think you've hit a lot of great bullet points there on scaling a business and talking about the systems and everything that you use. So it's wonderful. Got the baby with me. So
I see that. I see
in
that. That's
case you're
awesome.
wondering, trying to teach him about
Mine
scaling a
almost barged
business.
in the
Yeah.
in the middle of it, but
That's awesome. Well, Jorge, I appreciate it, man. I think everybody appreciates your presentation as well. I think you did a great job. So appreciate you sharing.
And Brian says he sent question in the app.
Oh, in the
I looked
Wova
there,
app.
but
You looked in the Wova app?
yeah, but maybe he sent it now. Hold on. Let me stop sharing.
I've got it here. I could read it off to you real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brian, I got two actually. So one's from Brian here. I struggle with property manager getting cost-effective quotes to repair properties, and I can get quotes at 50%. I can't understand what that says. SINC. Any thoughts on SOP, standard operating procedures for property managers? So I guess he's just having troubles getting
Yeah.
properties repaired, and
Yeah. So
obviously,
I
you know,
I
go
think
ahead.
that's it's an ongoing issue. So to me, property managers really excel at managing the property. Um, and a lot of the times when you throw some of these large CapEx projects at them, we've talked about focus, it takes them off their focus, which is managing the property. So to me, the best thing is hire a GC that has the experience working in multifamily and performing on CapEx projects, and let them perform those, and let the property manager manage the property. That's been, it's worked for us.
Yeah. Yep.
And
And Joseph,
go ahead.
yes, he asked about that scaling the business. So I think you answered that already. If you don't know how to underwrite, or if you're still learning how to underwrite, he answered that question. But yeah, one last question here. How many multifamily deals have you exited and what were their returns?
I don't know if I know the return on each single one, but we've exited out of one property fully. Then we're doing a refi cash out where we're returning 100% of the investor's money at the end of this month. 100% of their money plus more. And that's in 2 years. So, and then we've got one that 5 properties, it's a 5-property portfolio. And that's going to be closing in 60 days. And in 18 months, it's going to return, projected, right, to return around 50+% within 18 months.
Well, that's fantastic. So
yeah, that'd be a total of about 1,800 units altogether.
That's great, man. That's great. You're based out of Texas?
Yes, out of Dallas.
Okay, got it. I'm trying to learn that market a little bit more. So I lived in that area. There's a few storage deals we're looking at. But anyway, Jorge, thank you so much for presenting on scaling a business. Really appreciate you being with us today. So I will give you a round of applause, but we're online. So
really work that I appreciate way. It.
All right.
Yeah, this event always is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. They do a good job. So, all right. Thank you, Jorge. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Bye.
All right. Have a good one.